The only people who don't want to disclose the truth are people with something to hide.
One of the things I hear frequently is, oh, but so many officials have come forward and said that they saw the birth certificate. And when you analyze the words, now if you go back to Lindell, the previous Republican governor, she didn't say she saw it. She said that she sent Fuchino in, and Fuchino saw the birth certificate. Then Fuchino amends her statement to say, I saw the vital statistics records. I wonder why the change. Then you have Fuchino 16 days before the birth certificate is released saying, I saw the document and it was half written and it was half typed, and then it was released and it wasn't half written and half typed. And not one member of the media said, hey, Dr. Fuchino, you didn't even get the description right. You said you saw it. Are you wrong in your description, or did it change from the time you said that to the time it was released? I mean, no one's asking the obvious questions. Then you've got Abercrombie. I think his exact words, and I may be paraphrasing a little bit, there's a record in the file, but it's not going to satisfy some people, or he said something to that effect. So you've got Fuchino initially saying she saw the birth certificate, then saying that she saw the vital statistics records. Then you've got Abercrombie calling it a record, and then you've got Fuchino saying it's half written and half typed. It's not half written and half typed. And then I found this most interesting. Whenever the document was released, Abercrombie's exact words were, once again, we have found a way to show. He didn't say, hey, that birth certificate I was looking for, yeah, we found that. He says, once again, we have found a way to show. That's very weird. I mean, to me, what do you think?
Well, I think it's actually very well crafted in the sense to say, we're not telling you we have a birth certificate. We have a way to show you that he was born here. Because if you look at the birth certificate itself, or excuse me, I should say the PDF file that was released, they're just showing you something. That has no probative value at all. It's absolutely nothing. It exists in cyberspace. They've offered really no evidence. It has no evidentiary value. It cannot be used in any courtroom. They are showing you something. Just like everything else around this individual, they just want to show you things. They don't prove anything. They show you things. And I think what he was saying there was correct, that we just figured out another way to show you something to make you think something. Because I don't believe they had a legitimate birth certificate in that file. If they do have a birth certificate in that file, it certainly isn't what was represented on that PDF. I can tell you for a fact that the PDF is not an official document out of the state of Hawaii, regardless of what the verification, talking about information in the document. Information contained in the document is a far cry from verifying the authenticity of the document itself. They haven't done it. The reason why they haven't done it is because they can't.
That's the one thing about this. No one within the state of Hawaii in the past or the present has come forward and said that document at whitehouse.gov is precisely what we gave Barack Obama's attorney, Judith Corley. Not one person has come forward and said that. Now, some people pointed out to the fact that somewhere in Hawaii a website linked to it, and that's their verification. But when they were asked by Secretary of State Ken Bennett from Arizona for a verification, what they sent back was a very legally crafted response. We have the information in that document is verified by records in our file. I'm paraphrasing a tad, but not much. And what that's telling me is that there are probably multiple records, and I realize I'm speculating, but there are multiple records in Obama's vital statistics file at the Department of Health, most of which were probably added about the time he decided to run for president, and that they can verify the information with stuff they have on file. They don't tell you what they have on file. They certainly don't say it's in the form of a single one-page birth certificate, and they don't tell you whether or not any of the information was added very, very recently to that file. And what that reminds me of, Mike, is that reminds me of when Bill Clinton said that his answers regarding Monica Lewinsky were legally accurate but intentionally misleading. I think we have a lot of statements coming out of the Department of Health in Hawaii and out of the Attorney General's office in Hawaii and out of the Governor's office in Hawaii that may be legally accurate in the sense that they do have information on file that backs that information, but they're intentionally misleading because they're not telling us that most of that information came about decades after Obama was born and therefore has no legal value. At least that's my speculation. And I know you're in law enforcement, you can't get into speculation, but hopefully you'll at least agree with me that there's something really spooky about that. We have information that backs that information instead of just saying, that's it, that's what we gave them. No, 100%, no changes, nothing taken off, late filing not taken off, amended not taken off. That is word for word. If you took a picture of what we have on file and what they posted, that's the same thing. Why aren't we getting that from them?
Well, you know, Mark, I agree with you. I think that you're going to find, if anyone could ever get in there and records haven't been destroyed yet or scurried away, that you would find that in order to get the information as depicted on that electronic file to agree with the information contained in the file, that information is going to come in bits and pieces, just like the manufacturing of the PDF. I think it's information upon information that gets you to a conclusion. And Hawaii statutes provide for that. There are ways to amend birth certificates. There are ways to alter information on birth certificates. Now, is it possible there was a registration of birth? Absolutely. I believe there was a registration of birth because that's how it got in the 1961 newspaper. However, that doesn't mean it happened in Kapolani Medical Center. That doesn't even mean it happened in Hawaii. It's just somebody registering a birth event, and it may have been missing information in that half-written, half-typed form that later on was amended. And we don't know if it was amended with proper information or not. Obviously, Kapolani Medical Center doesn't have records to prove the existence of a birth event happening in their hospital for this individual. They have no record, no information, have never claimed that the mother was even a patient there. We know Queens didn't because Queens has records and they said he was never here. So what happened here? Let's see, we have a hospital that they purport to be the site of the birth, but we have a half-written, half-typed form that isn't even in the registrar's office. It's stuck in a file someplace in the archives. And that document has never seen the light of day. And that document, as far as I am concerned, should be able to be viewed by the American people, by anyone asking for that, because if it's in the state archives, you should have access to it. And it's out of, and it was out of the care and custody of the Department of Health in Hawaii. But that document has never been shown. Nobody took a picture of it. You don't have Savannah Guthrie taking a picture of that document, do you?
Well,
Why is that?
I'm not sure what she took a picture of. All I know is she took a picture of the document, and when you look at the PDF file and remove the clipping mask, the document she took a picture of and the PDF file are no longer a match. I also know that even if we didn't have the Guthrie photo, a clipping mask in and of itself is proof of human tampering. You and I could probably do 3 hours on all the anomalies in this document, but I would like to get back to what the recent finding was. You know, I think my listeners have already figured this out. I actually know what it is. And I can tell you that, without saying anything to give it away, that I was bowled over because my first thought was, you don't have to be a computer expert to understand this. You don't have to know how to turn on a computer to understand this. I mean, this is just pretty straightforward. And in fact, I think you've got a big decision on your hands, or I guess I should say Sheriff Arpaio does, because for the first time ever, you're getting interest from people in varying levels of government in this information, correct?
We are. You know, I went to CPAC a couple weeks back and had meetings with prominent individuals, and after I had the ability to sit down and discuss this topic with them in ways that hasn't been discussed before, we have gotten interest. So I am hopeful that something good is going to happen here relatively soon. It's going to be a little different for us, though, going forward, because we may have to pick and choose where we want to place this. The evidence that we have now is so damning to this document that we, for the first time, really feel like as if we're in the driver's seat. This isn't anything that's ever been out there before.
So essentially, the issue is you've got people at varying levels of government who are saying, I would like to move forward on this. it probably wouldn't make sense to have them all moving forward at the same time. So one of the decisions you and Sheriff Arpaio have to make, and I hate to use the word pass the baton, but it's what comes to mind, is that as you finish your lap in this race, you've got to pass that baton on to someone else at the next level, and you've got to pass it on to the group that is going to be able to do the job most effectively. And for the first time ever, you've got several options.
That basically says it in a nutshell, Mark.
Okay.
For the first time ever, we have people that have the ability to do something with it talking to us.
Well, that's exciting, and I'm not sure what suddenly woke these people up. I think what we heard a lot of in 2011 and 2012 was, hey, he's not going to be reelected anyway, so he got away with one, whatever. And now people are realizing that ignoring the issue wasn't the right thing to do, that there's overwhelming evidence, and that this is something that really would be rather easy to move forward on, but they simply chose not to. I think perhaps most because of fear of public ridicule. Would that be your thought?
It is fear of public ridicule is number one. Plus, it was a very effective disinformation campaign that was put out around it. And one of the most prominent parts of that is just the media blackout. You know, the media blackout, the way that that's viewed in disinformation is if I don't report on it, it never happened. And we are still coming across folks, even in Arizona, that don't know about this issue, let alone going east of Arizona. I mean, a lot of people in the nation have no idea that this investigation has taken place, have no idea that Sheriff Arpaio called it what he called it, a forgery. They have no idea where we are in this. And I'm going to tell you something else. They don't understand the severity of it. And I just want to make another point, Mark, just so we could put a bullet in this argument that's coming up. If anyone out there thinks that all they have to do now is produce a hard copy document and that satisfies this, they're wrong. Because a hard copy document, no matter what it was, we're not even going to talk about the authenticity of that document. But a hard copy document being produced now does not make this felony offense go away. This PDF has been manufactured by a human being with the intention to deceive. That does not go away just because somebody comes up with a paper document. And going back to what you talked about, Savannah Guthrie, with the clipping mask, and I have to give you a lot of credit for hanging in there with me, Mark, because you kept telling me about this clipping mask for a really long time, and I just couldn't get my head around it. But after, God, we must have had 15 conversations about this clipping mask as you were bringing this to my attention. That document, we know for a fact, is not the parent document of the PDF. In other words, that is not the document that was scanned in a computer that, quote, made the PDF file. We know that for a fact. That means whatever Savannah Guthrie held in her hand, she has no way to tell us if that was authentic or not. Because if we're to believe that the computer PDF image is the authentic scanned reproduction of the official document, it isn't what Savannah Guthrie held.
Let me back up just a little bit, Mike, because a lot of people might be listening for the first time. When Barack Obama's people held the press conference on April 27th, 2011, they were very careful to set Barack Obama up for plausible deniability. First of all the questions and answers took place before he entered the room. They passed out the copy of the long form and the short form before he entered the room. I think he had an interview with Oprah that day or something, so he had to get in there and get out very quickly. So he comes into the room, he says his piece about the birth certificate, and he leaves. Now, the birth certificate was not put on display, and the only reporter that was allowed to see the document, hold the document, touch the document, famously she said, "I felt the raised seal," was Savannah Guthrie of NBC News, who strangely enough got a promotion a few days later, within a couple of weeks of doing that interview.
The only people who don't want to disclose the truth are people with something to hide.